Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel, Designs by Dana. I'm Dana and I'm also a close to my heart maker. Today we're going to work with a paper packet that is in the core catalog. We have 4 season paper packets here. We have a summer, a spring, a fall, and a winter. I'm working with the winter paper packet and sticker sheet today, which you can see here is quite beautiful. But let's take a look in person. Here are the 3 sheets of paper that come in the packet, and you know they're double-sided. This is the one I'm going to use for my base page, and then we've got the zip strips along the top. Here's the other side of each of the 3 pattern papers and the product strips as well. We also have a beautiful coordinating sheet of stickers that has lots of tags and sentiments and icons as well. So we may be using some of those on our project also. Now here is the coordinating cardstock, which I usually buy with each packet. You can see that our cardstock is double-sided with a light and a darker shade of each one of our colors, which gives you a much more variety to work with. Now I'm also going to use some other products in this project today, and one of them is the new Snowflakes thin cuts. This is item Z8056, and we'll use this for some embellishments and have a lot of fun with that. I also dug into my stash and found this classic flourishes stamp set that we're going to use. So let's get all of this out of the way and get started. I'm bringing in my Versamat. We're going to make a single page layout today. I'm just going to tack down my base page today because I don't want it sliding around on me. And again, it's hard to tell, but this is that somewhat textured pattern paper. Here are my pictures I'm going to use, and these are pictures of my 2 grandsons on Christmas Day, but several years ago. And you can tell as any grandma, I'm very proud, and they are the apple of my eye and quite adorable in my opinion, at least. I chose to go black and white with these photos because the colors in their pajamas were kind of very multicolored and would throw off the color scheme of my layout. So I went ahead and pre-inked all of my edges of my papers, and I like to do that with charcoal ink, and that is definitely one of my signature scrapbooking techniques. And so we're going to work on dry fitting this out. I did decide to double mat my photos just because they were in black and white, and I wanted to make sure they stood out and popped a little bit. So I'm going to double mat those on the sage and the scarlet coordinating cardstock pieces. Now this piece you'll notice is a 12 by 12 piece, but I want it angled. And when I angle that, it doesn't quite fit. And so we're going to come up with a hack to accommodate for that. So when I put my pictures down here, you notice obviously that there's a lot of paper that won't show behind the pictures. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut that piece of paper behind one of these pictures at about probably 3.5, 4 inches. And then we can gap that out and nobody will ever know. So let me bring in my trimmer here. I think we're going to go with 4 inches just to be safe. So we'll cut that piece at 4 inches. And then I'm also going to bring in the zip strip that's going to go underneath it and cut that as well, the same measurement. Okay, so now we can lay that out. And you'll see this time that we've got plenty of room to work with. Now I can put that down. It's going to cover the whole page. I'm also going to bring in my close to my heart T-ruler just to make sure I can line this up perfectly because of the gap. I want to make sure that both pieces are in alignment. And you can see I'm off just a little bit, so I'm going to make some adjustment for that. Now I do like to dry fit everything before I glue it down, just to make sure that when I cut everything I didn't mismeasure or anything's not out of whack. So I'm going to go ahead and dry fit this and make sure everything looks okay, and then we'll get it glued down. You can see that I'll be able to cut off that excess once I'm completed with the layout, so that's not a problem. I've got these two pieces at the top that I'm just going to kind of angle in opposite directions. And the circle I cut on my Cricut, I think it's an 8-inch circle, and I use the slicing technique to cut out the center, and I think it's a 1/4 inch thick circle. So I put my photo down there over that gap, and you can see that no one will ever know that the gap exists, and it covers my page perfectly. I'm very happy with how that is looking. Now up here I have this little tag that's going to come on the side, but I want to dovetail that out. So most people will just cut up the center of their page and then come in on each side with the angles. I like to turn my paper over, so I'm always cutting from the same direction. But everybody has their own little technique for how they dovetail. But now that I have that dovetailed, I do need to come back in and ink that piece of paper with my charcoal ink. So while I'm inking that up, I wanted to give credit and let you know that this layout was inspired by a sketch. The sketch was created by Rachel Spears over at scrapourstash.blogspot.com. So I will try to be sure to put a link to the original sketch out there under my description. I really like to get inspired by sketches as a jumping off point. So thank you to Rachel for putting this sketch out there. So I've got some stickers that I want to put the banners down here, but we won't do that until we've got everything adhered down and ready to go. So let's bring in some of our snowflakes that we're going to embellish with. And I've got several cut out here. And these snowflakes are really conducive to layering. So I'm going to kind of angle some of these and layer them out. With these small ones, in particular, they've got this little star in the center. So I can kind of take that star and line it up and then just kind of give it a little bit of a twist. And it's not a whole lot of offset, but just enough to give that snowflake some really nice, pretty texture. And then I can glue that together. And that one's going to go down here at the bottom as well. And then these other ones I'm going to kind of offset a couple others and put them here in the center of the photos. I'm gonna just kind of build up a little cluster down here at the bottom of the pictures and kind of play with that. Then I've got one that's going to go up here kind of tucked under this one photo on the left. So once I kind of get an idea for where those snowflakes are going to go, I'm going to bring in my stamp set. And you can see I have a lot more snowflakes that I've cut. And if I get into the embellishing and gluing this down and I decide I need more, I've got plenty more on hand just in case. But we'll wait and get everything glued down and see what we might need going forward. So you might be wondering what I plan to do with that stamp set. So I'm going to bring that in and I'm going to stamp it with my linen ink. And linen is very, very light, and I want this to be very light and subtle because eventually we're going to cover it up. And I'll hold that for a little bit of a surprise later on how we're going to do that. But one of the things that I did and I want to mention is that with these flourishes and swirls, whatever you want to call them, I put more than one on a block, and what I'm doing here is I'm kind of measuring out where I want them to be. So I brought in my pencil and I'm just kind of giving it a little tick mark and measuring out where the paper is going to end and where I want to position each one of these. So that will help me when I'm ready to actually do the stamping. But I have multiple stamps on each block, so that's a nice little hack when you're doing things like this and you want to make sure they're all arranged nicely. So I think each block has at least two, maybe one of them on the left has 3 stamps. But I'm going to ink that up nicely with the linen ink and then just stamp one on each side of my focal point down there at the bottom. And eventually these will become part of the focal point and an essential part of this actual layout. But again, I will save the surprise or the suspense on what we're going to do with these until a little bit later on. So we'll get that one stamped up, and then we'll stamp the second one up on the other side. And you can see I really kind of like them kind of coming out from the focal point of the snowflakes, so they're just kind of flourishing out of that. I'm going to call it a centerpiece for now, for lack of a better word. So I'm just going to kind of let that ink soak in for a quick second, and then we'll put that aside. And then now we're really ready to just kind of put everything back together and get it all glued down. So let me get that glued down and we'll come back and work on embellishing. Okay, so everything is glued down and we're ready to embellish. I sped this up just a little bit, but not too much. First thing I'm going to do here is pop up that center snowflake, and I'm using the thin foam tape and the narrow width, and I'm just putting small pieces around the center part where it's kind of broken up with a little cutouts. So I'm just kind of sporadically putting little pieces there, and I'm putting it off-centered because I really want the sentiment on that t-shirt to show. And if you can't read it, it says Silent Night, yeah, right. And I just thought that was so cute. So I'm going to go ahead and cluster these and glue the other snowflakes down. I'm bringing in my Barely Art glue because I just love the fine tip on this glue. It's very similar to our Tombow liquid glue, but the fine tip here is just priceless. I really, really like how it works. And then the other one, what I'm going to do here is I'm also going to adjust the snowflake and just kind of bend out the, I want to say leaves, but the stems or the snowflake pieces to give them more dimension and texture. And I also have these little buttons I'm going to pull in too, and I want to incorporate those. Got a sticker I'm going to put up here in the upper left, but of course I need to ink that up. And then I can glue down that snowflake as well. Now these buttons I have, I'm going to bring in, came from my stash, and they're quite old. So I really like being able to incorporate some old things with new things. The Santa, I'm not really sure if I'm going to be able to incorporate it or not. So we're just going to wait until we get finished and then see if we have a place for it. Okay, so now this kind of suspense for the flourishes. I have tons of bitty sparkles that I need to use up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use that very lightly stamped flourish section, and I'm going to fill it in with the bitty sparkles. So basically I used the stamp to create my outline, and I'm going to put the bitty sparkles on. Now I'm not going to make you watch me do this whole thing, but I do want you to watch me do a few so that you can see how it starts to take form and take shape. So let me just get a few of these down, and you can see how the shape starts to take, and then I will do the rest off camera so I won't totally bore you to death watching these. Now, one of the things I ended up doing in the end is adding a little glue and putting them down as well. Okay, so here is the finished layout. I'm so happy with how it turned out. You can see my embellishments go from the upper left to the center bottom of the layout. My sparkles turned out fantastic and I just love them. Fun fact, it took 4 sheets of the Bitty Sparkles, and you can see how those embellishments flow. I added some stickers. If I add some journaling, I'll put it over there on the right. If you liked my video, please be sure and hit that like button, and don't forget to subscribe as well. So until next time, thank you for watching. Bye-bye.